So if you are a Bible literalist or fundamentalist Christian, you might not have heard of Göbekli Tepe because it dates back to before Adam was even alive. However, interestingly enough, it is not too far, about 8 hours drive from Mount Ararat, which is the mountain where Noah landed his ark. It's about the same drive as New York City to Buffalo, New York. It's also another 8 hours away from the city of Constantinople, which is now Istanbul, and equally just as far from Israel, and also equally as far from Babylon. If you drew an X on the map between these four places, Göbekli Tepe would be right in the middle, which is interesting. It almost suggests that possibly the civilization who dwelt here could be the parent civilization for all four of these, which would also explain why all of these cultures have the 12 constellations of the zodiac. Before the discovery of Göbekli Tepe, historians, anthropologists, archaeologists all sort of agreed that the first civilization was from Sumer in 3500 BC. As soon as this was discovered, that all fell apart very quickly. And there's still, to this day, there's still people, mostly fundamentalist religious people, who fight against this and say, oh, the carbon dating isn't real, the carbon dating is off. This is probably just some newer spot that we didn't know about. But the facts are, this is an old, ancient place from the Stone Age. Paganism is the oldest religion on the planet. The people at Göbekli Tepe were most likely early farmers, but not the farming that we think of today. They probably were just very subtly picking from apple trees and picking fruits, picking vegetables. They didn't yet know how to master farming where they had like giant crops and grain fields. The civilization is very small. You can only have a certain amount of people living in your area. So what we have around the Turkey Black Sea region, even around all the way to the north in modern day Crimea, is you had these little pockets of civilizations, little family pockets. But here in Göbekli Tepe, we see a temple, which is a sign of a major city or a major civilization, major empire. It's quite possible that this was a location that was being used by several of these pocket civilizations, and this was like a central gathering place, that maybe there was some sort of agreement among tribes that this was sacred ground, and this was a peaceful place, a peaceful zone for people to worship. Regardless, it's very puzzling on how this actually came about, who actually used their resources and time to build this place during a time when time and resources were scarce. I mean, survival was all people were really worried about. But then you think about what was going on in people's heads back then. They were looking up at the sky and they just saw this majestic screen of lights and plasma. So they don't know what to think. This has to be the heavens, they think. This has to be God. That has to be an angel of the Lord flying past my head as they're looking at a comet. So they do find some pottery here. The pottery looks like it could be from 15,000 years ago. I mean, none of the pottery matches up with anything seen in Sumer, Babylon, Egypt. This is old technical stuff right here. It is Stone Age clay pottery. So the youngest radiocarbon dated parts of Göbekli Tepe bring us to around 7500 BC. So that's the youngest we can go. Most scholarship agrees that maybe this was around 9000 BC. This is actually quite shocking for most historians because this is the end of the Ice Age. This is the beginning of civilization. So these are known as tells. They're little mountain areas where people would put their building structures back then. And it was always on these, you have Tel Aviv, for example, is a good example of a name of a town or a city that is on top of a hill. Here you can see clear depictions of constellations like Taurus, Sagittarius, Scorpio. So at first, they mistakenly took these T-shaped pillars as grave markers, and then later on, another archaeologist came along and pointed out that this is not a grave site, this is a temple. These are pillars for pagan gods. So dating these rocks give us a large, wide range of carbon dating between 10,000 BC and 7,000 BC, which means there was a culture staying here for a very long time, and they were building on top of each other. So the more down you dig, the older it gets. Also, someone in modern times, I don't know if this was in medieval times or Middle Ages, but somebody did try to bury this place. For whatever reason, this place was not to be seen or known about, and it was they tried to bury it, but it was found in the 90s. And when it was found in 1996 by the German Archaeological Institute, it put anthropology on its head. Like history as we knew it. Even back then, Christianity and religious institutions had carried weight in the historical scholarship. So, for example, Bible history sort of lined up with secular history for a long time. And even up until the mid-90s, there was still a lot of agreeing with that until this came up. Now this puts that on its head. No longer can we say the first human being literally came in 4000 BC. That's nonsense. People still believe that though. But Göbekli Tepe is like your slam dunk to show somebody who it's like when you're trying to show a flat earther that the earth is round. You know, you got to show them how the moon works and how the shadows of the moon work. And that's how you kind of get them out of it and kind of wake them up. Well, this is for people who think the world is 6,000 years old. Just show them this. Göbekli Tepe follows geometric pattern. The pattern is an equilateral triangle that connects these T-shaped figures, and it makes it like a circle. It almost looks similar to Ireland and Scotland, where you have Stonehenge. So these pictograms, as you can see, are very well done, and they actually come out of the stone, which means they would have to carve around the pictograms. This would have took a long time to do, possibly years to even get a few of these done, unless you had a lot of people working on them. But they're very, very beautiful. So there's another location called Çatalhöyük, which is a very large Neolithical place not too far. It's also in Turkey, and this is from about 7,000 BC to 5,000 BC. And Çatalhöyük is very similar. You might see a descendant civilization of the Göbekli Tepe people, because they have a lot of similar structures built there too. But this is a little more advanced. Now we're starting to see a little bit more mud brick using. There's different layers in the housing. They have ladders. They have better pottery. So you can see a difference between these two. However, Göbekli Tepe is just fascinating because of the age of it. I mean, there's nothing here to suggest that this is anywhere near the time of Sumer, like 3500 BC. I mean, there's not even any metal. There's no weapons, really. This is just like a straight Stone Age civilization. So it's estimated that the work of quarrying, transporting, and erecting tons of heavy, monolithic, and almost universally well-prepared limestone pillars was not within the capability of a few people. This had to have been at least 100 people, and carving one moa of a similar size to a T-shaped pillar would have taken 20 people a year of spare time, and 50 to 75 people a week to transport 15 kilometers. Stonehenge was calculated to be 7 to 14 people that could have moved the pillars just using ropes and water and other lubricant. So as you can see, this is some good work right here. It's very similar to Stonehenge. So Göbekli Tepe is regarded by some archaeologists as a crucial stage in the development of human society. Some people believe that this construction probably contributed to later development of urban civilization. So, as I pointed out earlier, the location here is key, because we're looking at smack dab in the middle of the ancient world. Babylon down here, Egypt over here, the Scythians are up here, and the Greeks are over here. And right in the middle of all four of these ancient civilizations is, boom, Göbekli Tepe. So it suggests to me, and this is my personal thoughts on this, that maybe, possibly, this region of the world in Anatolia was really the start of the out of Africa theory. Like, they could have came out of Africa through the Mediterranean, possibly along the coast, and just followed lakes and rivers and looked for an area where there was clean water, fruit to pick, and this could have been the spot. Now we know that climate change is so drastic and can happen so easily that it's possible this area could have been a lot greener than it is today. Future plans look like the construction of a museum and converting the environment into an archaeological park. But like I said, this has been halted for a minute now. They're literally only 10% dug. This is going to be a big project. And I really hope that the government in Turkey wakes up and gets on this thing, because this is very important for humanity, to know our roots, to know who we were, what were we doing, where did we get these ideas from. And this could tell us a lot about ourselves, and it could also shed light on some of these mysteries of our past. So if you like this video, subscribe, share, and stay tuned for the next one.